Hello everyone, as you know, consumables in a car are not just oil and filters, but also spark plugs. I have an Audi A6 C5 with a 2.4-liter gasoline engine, and I've already driven over 50,000 kilometers on the old spark plugs, so it's long overdue to replace them. According to the manual, spark plugs are replaced every 60,000 kilometers. Of course, it all depends on your car, where you drive, and how you use it. I got the same spark plugs that were installed here before, NGK. So, in this video, we'll try to replace them together. As you can see, I have a V-shaped engine, and the manual says it's enough to unscrew the expansion tank and move it to the side to get to the rear spark plug. On the other side of the engine, the air filter might get in the way, but we'll see. It seems accessible. First, we remove all the plastic covers, then disconnect the high-voltage wires one by one and unscrew the old spark plugs. As you can see, I had to disassemble the engine a little. On one side, we removed the plastic and shifted the air filter to the side to make it easier to reach the spark plugs. On the other side of the engine, we unscrewed the expansion tank, moved it aside, and disconnected the coolant level sensor. Now you can work here without any problems. Before replacing the spark plugs, you first need to remove the high voltage wires. Just pull the wire toward you and it will disconnect. Many recommend marking the wires to know which cylinder they go to. However, I believe this is unnecessary since the wires are already marked. For example, the number 1 corresponds to the first cylinder, and so on. If you do everything step by step, it will be hard to mix them up. By the way, I noticed that my wires are starting to fall apart. The corrugated sleeve has completely disintegrated. I'd be glad if you write in the comments who replaced their high voltage wires and which brand you used. And one more important thing, the engine must be cool. If you unscrew the spark plugs on a hot engine, you can damage the threads in the cylinder head. The engine has cooled down, and I'm using a 16mm spark plug socket. It has a rubber insert that holds the spark plug and prevents it from falling out. Insert the socket, feel it grip the spark plug insulator, and carefully start unscrewing. After breaking the spark plug loose, continue unscrewing it by hand. Here's what the spark plug looks like after 50,000 kilometers. There's oil and carbon buildup, but nothing critical. Let's take a closer look at the spark plug insulator. As you can see, it's in good condition, and crankcase gases are not passing through it. So I unscrewed the remaining spark plugs. Only in the first and fifth cylinders are they a bit oily. If you look closely, you can see oil on the threads here. The rest are dry, but their condition is similar. One more thing. The previous spark plugs I had were original NGK ones. Here they are, with the Volkswagen and Audi logos. Interestingly, all the plugs have the same part number. After we've unscrewed the spark plugs, it's time to install the new ones. There are 2 ways to do this. The first way is as shown on the packaging. Everything is done by hand. That is, we screw the spark plug in by hand until it stops. Then, depending on the type of washer, we tighten it either 1/16 of a turn or half to 2/3 of a turn. Mine is the second type, so I tighten them by hand and then give them a half turn. I will be using NGK spark plugs. This is their number. The second way is to use a torque wrench and tighten them to the specified torque. First, place the spark plug in the socket, then carefully lower it into the engine cylinder and start screwing it in by hand. I will tighten the spark plug by hand first and then use the torque wrench. If you don't have a torque wrench, turn it half a turn as indicated on the packaging. If you have other spark plugs, I think the packaging will indicate how to tighten them. Look, the spark plug doesn't screw in further by hand. Now I'll tighten it half a turn with the torque wrench. Well, we tighten all the other spark plugs in the same way. That's it. All the spark plugs are tightened to the required torque. Next, we attach the high voltage wire. That's it. It clicked into place. After replacing all the spark plugs, the final step is to start the engine and listen to how it runs. If everything is running smoothly, then it's fine. All cylinders are working, and you can safely drive another 50,000 kilometers. Replace your spark plugs on time. See you in the next videos.